I could just look up Dracula a Day and see if it's a real thing, but instead I'm going to go to my Yakri. Okay. Why are we doing this live? Epi, what are you doing? We should intro the show. That's what we should do.
One of the many things we do here on the Unwritten Earth Symposium podcast is wonder, Epi, what are you doing?
Yes, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing anymore.
Which I suppose is a good time to say that, hello, welcome. We are indeed here.
Yes.
I'm here with my good friend Epidiah Ravishal, who is doing something that we're not sure why.
Yeah, we're not sure. And I'm here with my good friend Nathan Paoletta, who is patiently awaiting some result of whatever this thing is that I'm doing.
Some kind of resolution.
Mm-hmm.
That is a good thematic lead-in to the topic that we were going to talk about this episode, in terms of not really knowing what you're doing, seeking some kind of some kind of end state that you perhaps you'll know it when you see it, but you don't know how to get there.
Yes.
This idea of the white whale of game design.
It is, well, now it's a little past springtime, but when we first scheduled talking about this, it was in the spring. Wait, it's technically spring.
It's spring here. I don't know about you.
It's spring here. It's warm, though. Anyways, spring gets me thinking of the Greenwood, and the Greenwood, as should, gets me thinking of Robin Hood, which means I'm thinking about Lincoln Green, my game that I've spent like a decade trying to write. Actually, I should go back and see how long I've been working on this thing. Mm-hmm. It has to have been like at least a decade. A decade ago is not as long ago as it used to be. That's
true.
One thing that I'm learning.
You were working on it for slightly longer than we talked about the Rockford Files, is what you're telling me.
I feel like that might be true. So Lincoln Green is, in 2017, I said it was coming soon. so you might as well be a decade. Mm-hmm. By the time this podcast comes out, it'll be a decade.
So this was a topic that you brought because of your springtime revisiting of this game. Yeah,
like almost like clockwork. Every spring, I suddenly get this urge to work on Lincoln Green, and it eludes me. It won't elude me forever. That I know. But I have managed to make a game that other people have enjoyed, but running it, I do not. Like, it's not that I dislike the game. It's not like I didn't have fun running it, but like as I run it, I'm like, this is not the experience I want the person running it to have. This is, I'm doing a lot more work here than what I want.
Than I should be.
Yeah, then I should be. Yeah. And then there's like a bunch of things in it that I keep putting in it that I'd love to have. So one of the problems with it, and I think that maybe I'm going to talk specific. I'm going to resist the urge to generalize here because I think everyone's got their own reason for having a white whale if they have it. So I'm not going to be like, the reason why any of us have white whales is because of this. But like one of the reasons why this one is so elusive to me is that like the Robin Hood folklore covers a lot of eras of like, this isn't unique to Robin Hood. This is the case with like any folklore. Different eras invent different things for this hero. The robbing the rich to feed the poor is a thing that I want to focus on because like, obviously nowadays, let's just talk about that and like how that's the moral high ground. But that isn't in the original Robin Hood stuff. He's just a rebel and like sometimes vicious and brutal. Like some of the early stuff is pretty brutal. And I don't want to do I'm completely uninterested in a gritty reboot of Robin Hood.
Sure.
One of my favorite versions of Robin Hood is the Howard Pyle stuff. If you haven't read it, highly recommend it. It has a lot of the beginning of it. The opening, the prologue is an amazing, like, hey, we're just having a little, like, if you think that this is historically inaccurate, I need you to understand we're just having a little fancy here. We're just having a little fancy. Let's just enjoy. And I'm like, oh, it's good. And Howard Pyle obviously is a legendary illustrator. Like if you haven't seen his work, if you haven't seen his work, you have. You just don't know it.
Sure.
But like the Howard Pyle has a certain tone to it that isn't, he's whacking people over the head and cracking their skulls, but that's not killing them. That is somehow just subduing them, and that's fine.
Sure.
And that's a certain way to play that I really love to facilitate. But also, I don't mind doing, or rather would like to do, one that like focuses a little bit more on a realistic forest outlaw rebellion, right? Because these are things that actually happened in the medieval era, and I also am a huge fan of the Robin of Sherwood show from the 80s, which is it's got, again, it's not like a gritty reboot or anything like that, but it's not cynical, but it also has, like, one of my favorite bits in it, to spoil the show from the 80s, is like, you know, a lot of us grew up with the version of the Robin Hood myth where King Richard, is the Lionhearted, is gone. Like, it's his brother, the scurvy Prince John.
Right. Yeah.
That's the problem. We're hoping that King Richard will come back and save the day. He'll be like Aragorn, you know, like that kind of thing. And in the Robin of Sherwood, King Richard is played by Rhys Davies.
Oh, really?
Exquisite role, like, great. And he comes back and he's like, Robin, you're the best. Like, I'm so glad you were here. And Robin's like, thank you. We're best buds. And then, like, the rest of the merryfolk are like, why are you buddying up to that king? He is going to mess you up. And he does. He just absolutely betrays him. And it's so good. It's like this, like, wonderful lesson for our Robin to learn, is that you can't trust kings. You just can't.
Yeah. Never trust a king. You know, my Robin Hood is the combo of, you know, the Disney animated one with the animals, plus the Kevin Costner movie version filtered through Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Right.
Which I watched endlessly as a kid, and then later saw the Kevin Costner movie and went, oh, this is a send up of. Like, this is what each of these individual jokes is actually. It's actually directly from this other movie.
Like when he turns to the camera and says that he at least has a British accent or something like that. Yeah.
The intro with like the flaming arrows going into the town, like all that stuff. Yeah, I don't know if I've ever, maybe, I'm sure when I was a kid, I probably read, you know, some collection of like adventure tales, like some Robin Hood stuff. But my mediation of the myth and legend is all through these movies.
Yeah. Part of why it's a little bit of a white whale for me is that I have definite feelings about the kinds of experiences I want to create with this that I have because I've actually spent a lot of time reading a lot of Robin Hood stories.
And you've read a lot of the actual like scholarship too, like the academic stuff going into like breaking it down. Yeah. Robin Hood and other outlaw tales.
Yeah. This is a collection of like the first, I'm going to say 400 years of Robin Hood.
Sure.
So yeah, like there's definitely, I didn't start off with this knowledge.
Yeah. Well, part of the pursuit of the whale is going off into the sea to scout. Right? And that is the most tempting. It's so great because there's a couple things. Like, number one, you can always just say it's your job. You're supposed to do this. You have to do a good job. You have to make a good piece. I'm sorry. I have to rewatch Robin of Sherwood again. I have to watch Disney's Robin Hood again. I have to.
Yeah. You could write it off. Right? If you're doing a business here, like we are, like that is research. That's an expense. And it gives your brain an excuse to delve into areas that you might not otherwise delve into. Like I end up like on weird medieval tangents and things where I'm like, I wouldn't have gone here if I was just like setting up a D&D game for some friends, right? The Disney one presents itself one of the biggest challenges and one of my favorite things about it, because I definitely want to have that as part of the body of work, because that's important to me. Like, same reason, like it's, you know, a childhood memory. It is where I know Robin Hood from. It's where it starts for me. And also I want to both want to have like a game that you can, you know, have the rules pare down to something that like can be played with kids
Mm.
So, like, that aspect of the Disney Robin Hood. But then the other aspect of the Disney Robin Hood has nothing to do with kids, which is the anthropomorphic aspect, which
Right.
I have a soft spot in my heart for anthropomorphic games in general. I've never written one.
As well recorded by your feelings about the like Myriad song and the the other
Usagi Yojimbo Penguin Games. And just like I've said this before, but I don't know if I've said it on the podcast, but like, you don't have to be running an anthropomorphic game, but if you give all of your NPCs an animal species, it just makes them so much more memorable. You describe your PCs coming up to like a door, like a house in a village, and somebody answers, and you describe like a very matronly woman who opens the door and like has maybe some kids behind her, like running around inside the house. She looks a little frazzled, and she's like, "What do you want?" Fine, that's a character. You might remember that character. You want to give that character some business, go for it. That's good stuff. But if you also say that she's an armadillo,
right,
like right, we're done.
And the difference between she's an armadillo and she's a weasel.
Right, exactly. Maybe, you describe her as like filling the doorway, and she's like, and then you're like, oh, you're going to make her an elephant or something like that, and you're like, she's a mouse that fills the doorway. You're like, what? Like, it can't hurt you. It can never hurt you to make it an animal.
Uh-huh.
Anyways, that's neither here nor there. I'm off on many tangents here because that's one of the reasons why this is a white wolf.
So I think there's a couple things to parse out here. So one, I thought this would be an interesting topic because I'm coming to it from the perspective of having, successfully or not is a matter for others to decide, but come out the other side of my own white whale game.
Yes.
Which was Imp of the Perverse, which I had started working on, some of the initial concept and some of the initial stuff I started on. And I think the earliest file date I have for something to do with that game was 2007 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I finished it in 2014, I think. I'd have to go grab the book.
Now we're humble bragging. Got mine done in 7 years.
Something like that. Whatever. I'd have to go to the tape. Anyway, the point is, there was a long, it took a long time. And part of it was this same thing of going off and doing the research, right? So this is a historically, and I wonder if there's a theme here, right? Where it's a historically based game. There is a specific epic, right, that we're trying to capture here. In my case, I'm talking about basically the time bracketed by the birth and then death of Edgar Allan Poe, or rather the beginning of his creative work life, I should say, and then his death in the 1840s. So it's the 1830s, 1840s. I call it Jacksonian Gothic America. So it is embedded in the time as a historical place that you can read about and pull events from and look at maps and do all that stuff. But then it's layered with the layer of, but there are real monsters and people become monsters through this process of allowing and then celebrating these perversities that they have within them that are externalized by the imp that sits on your shoulder and tells you, and tempts you with reasons to do the thing that you really do want to do, but no, you shouldn't. And so that's the hook for gameplay, is that you're these protagonists who are under this influence, are fighting against it, or maybe not, but because you are under the same, you're in the same situation where you are being tempted with power that comes from beyond the veil between, the world of the living and the world of the dead. Because of that, you can feel when others have given into that and turned into monsters and are now destroying things around them. Because that's what happens. You turn into a monster, you destroy stuff around you. There's no noble fight against your own monstrousness. Once you've turned, that's you now. That's it.
Yeah.
And so the path to potentially ridding yourself of your own perversity and getting back to humanity is to heal the world around you a little bit in some way by dealing with this monstrous thing that's in your world. So I have the benefit of being able to talk about what the game's about because I finished the game. right?
Right. Yes. It's very hard to talk about what the game's about if it's not done enough to have an about. Right. Like it's
So and part of the challenge of finding that was basically being like, okay, there's all these things because like I had these other notes on this. There's like this concept of kind of more of an epistolary style game where you're doing more like writing like original creation as part of play, and then like zooming in and like playing out part of that story in the embodied character kind of play, and then having a relationship between like being the author and being the character. At a certain point, I kind of had to just be like, I'm just not able to make these two things connect. That it doesn't feel right. I just need to let go of this part of it, like that, like epistolary part of it. I was like, I just need to let go of that. It's a different game, or maybe it lives in a different spot in the world of this game, but like, I got to just stop trying because it's not working.
That I think that's a kind of a vital part of it. Like, because a lot of times games of mine that are successful in the fact that they've become games often involve having that sacrificial thing where you're just like, it just doesn't work here. We can save it for something else. Like, if I have good ideas with it, it'll bubble up somewhere else. And I have a question, because like previous to Lincoln Green, Swords Without Master was probably my White Whale. It wasn't called Swords Without Master. I just had a sword and sorcery game that I just kept redoing and redoing and redoing. And then I had a moment when I realized what it was going to be. And from that moment forward, it stopped even existing White Whale style and just became like, and it is very similar to like what you were saying, like just having an about. Like, I know what this game's about now, right? Like, whereas before I was like, I just want to make a sword and sorcery game. I have things to say about sword and sorcery, but I never sat down and thought, do you, Epi? Like, what do you have to say?
What do you have to say here? Yeah.
And it's not that I sat down and thought about it and then said, oh, I have to say this. It's that Swords Without Master is based on Monkey Dome, which is the game that we made in a week. And like the day we printed it was the day it hit in my head. I was like, oh, this is the game. This is the mechanic that will do the thing that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And that was in from there. So like, did you have this with your Imp the Perverse? Was there like a moment of like the harpoon hit, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm either riding this out to my death or I'm pulling this in.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I'm really stretching this metaphor into like oblivion and also to a non-vegan territory. So.
There's one thing we're good at here. It is twisting metaphors far beyond what they were meant to bear, to twist another to mix a couple more metaphors. Anyway, what was my progression? So, to the best of my recollection, and this is another thing to kind of throw into the conversation, there was an element of having the, like, what makes the White Whale, right? There's the idea, there's the feeling that you're like, this is what I'm trying to capture.
Yeah.
And then there's the thing you're actually doing with the game. Like, here's the rules, here's how I'm running it, and the thing that you're doing with the game is not capturing the feeling, right?
Yes.
That's the gap. That's what and that feeling keeps receding into the mists, right?
Yes. And I think it's like important to kind of like just state that that's a fine thing to have happen, right? Like you're like, oh, I want this feeling, but I've discovered this mechanic that does a thing that's adjacent to or different from this feeling. I'm going to follow this out and maybe make a game from that. That is perfectly fine. Like there's this like my experience talking to people who have White Whales is quite often I'm like, you have like they'll run a game for me and I'll play it and I'll be like, this is a lot of fun, and they're like, yeah, but it's not doing what I wanted to do, and I'm like, okay,
yeah,
you have a choice here. Like, you could just put this out and then move on and do the like continue your search, or you can abandon it. I'm not going to judge you either way, but if I'm enjoying it, I'm going to prefer that you put it out. Like, I would prefer that
there's a couple, and I think we've seen this, within our circles and friends of ours, where it's like the only thing, right? Where it's like, this is the only everything
Yeah.
that I want to do, and I'm just not getting it. I'm just not getting it. And it kind of turns into like almost a self-fulfilling prophecy where it's like, I'm not going to do anything else because I just want to capture this, but I'm never capturing this. And it's like, well, maybe doing something else for a while would get you to where you need to be. So what I was going to say is, for me, there was a period where I was like, my skills are not at the level that they need to be to capture this. That was like a talk I had with myself at a certain point. What I'm interested in doing mechanically with games, what I'm interested in right now with how I design games, is not capturing the feeling right for this game. So there was a couple years where I was like, this is just on the shelf because like I just need to get better at game design.
Yeah.
And I think giving myself that kind of permission was really good.
Yeah.
I wasn't coming back to it over and over and trying to rework stuff. It was more like, I'm just not there, and I do have these other interests. I'm going to pursue some of this other stuff, get other games out, and like just let it sit here because I know it's still going to be there when I'm ready to go back.
I think it's another important and valid tactic, is like to shelve a thing until you know, like we started this. I said every spring I think about it, which implies that throughout the rest of the year I'm not thinking about it, and that's important, right? Like it's important to let your brain rest on a topic from time to time.
I also had a very clear idea of what I wanted the book to look like, and that actually was really helpful for me. And this is just because I'm a visual thinker, and a lot of the time what will drive my creative wheels with writing and design and like game design is figuring out what the thing's going to look like having a sketch of like, this is where I want it to be when it's like on a shelf or like on the, available for someone to buy. Like, what is the cover going to look like, or what's the form factor of the product or whatever. A lot of the time, this is what I'm thinking about before the game is written.
This is, I think, one of my downfalls is that with Lincoln Green specifically is that I do have a distinct vision of what I want it to look like, and for me that's not particularly helpful for my process. Like, we're different in that way, which is good for us. And also, it's funny because I think if I were to like pick a game out there in the world where I'm like, that's the closest to how I want Lincoln Green to look, it'd be the Perverse. Like it absolutely, because it's cloth bound, right?
Yeah, it's
like
the red cloth bound cover with just the gold foil stamp title and like no other like branding or anything. Yeah,
I've obviously green cloth bound, right? And with like a just like a little. I like the arrows and then like the horn, because Robin Hood in many of them like has a horn that he blows or whatever. It doesn't matter. Like I really shouldn't get into, but like also the interiors just having green, black, and red as the colors that you, like that's like woodcut style. Like, again, looking at all of these books around me, literally the only one that's like that, I think. But for me, that's a danger.
Yeah, having an aesthetic kind of in mind can be, I mean, for me, it's helpful. And so there's that alignment of like feeling like I'm getting closer to being able to do the thing I want to do.
Yeah.
Having kind of a vision of like, okay, when this is like done, what is it actually going to kind of look like? What is it going to be in the world? That helps me a lot. And yeah, I think I just went through kind of an iterative process. Like it was a real testament to the like minimal play testable version kind of stuff, where it was like, I would have, okay, here's what I think is going to be right for the players to have in terms of like sheets and stuff. And then I have my like bullet list of like, here's how the mechanics kind of work. And then I think I held it kind of loosely. Yeah, so the playtests for that were very much about, I think, similar to the experience you've had with Lincoln Green, where you're like, okay, so this like works, it's functional, and the players are having fun, are doing things. I'm seeing them interact and doing stuff at the table. But like on my end, I'm not seeing the juice. Like I'm not feeling or seeing the thing that I'm trying to get. And so for me, what was helpful, I think, was being like not trying to design the juice and capture it, more like, here's the architecture, like here's like, so for Imp the Perverse, right, you have your play sheet and it's your character sheet and it has your stuff on it, and and then I have like a little rule summary of how the dice work, and then it's a kind of mission-based game where you're like you need to investigate and find and then confront a monster. So like I have a monster, right? And I have some notes about like the relationship between what the characters are doing and what that means for the monster, essentially. And then during playtests, I kind of be really loose about like, this feels like it should be doing something, and I don't really have anything for it to be doing right now, right? Yeah. And just kind of like either making it up on the spot or just making a note about that and being like, this needs to do something, and it's not. Or we go through some procedure and I'm like, we spent a lot of time on that and it didn't really change anything, right? Like, yeah, I think there was this dynamic I was looking for of like actions that are taken by the protagonists give the editor in that game, give the editor our specific thresholds and triggers for the editor to have the monster do stuff. So you also like have your vision as the editor of like, this is what the monster is doing, but it needs to respond in the world to what the protagonists are doing well before they actually meet. And so, yeah, there wasn't like a tipping point kind of thing where it's like, oh, I figured out how that works. Right. It wasn't that. It was more just going through not that many, even like 2 or 3 playtests with different groups across time. This is over like 3 years, and kind of finding those dynamic paths. But I think what I was doing was giving the players, and I think you have done this with Lincoln Green, giving the players something like, you can play that. Like, here's your character, and like, here are the rules that that you use when you play.
This is what you care about.
This is what you care about. And so I wonder if this is kind of a model that like it works for this kind of like, central GM many player kind of game where like the GM is supposed to do stuff in particular. It's not just like you play the world and you present antagonists and that kind of stuff, which I have those games too, but like this particular game has a more rigorous relationship.
It's interesting because like again, like same thing with Lincoln Green, where at one point I realized that I wrote these oaths that you say at the beginning of the game, and it felt corny, but then when we did them, it worked. I think we talked about this in a previous, the ritual episode. Yeah, and I had them for the player side and the GM side because I realized that like I had these urges. Game warden, I should say, the game warden in Lincoln Green. I had these urges to fall back on the sort of standard tropey GM that we all bring from the greater culture of role playing games.
Well, yeah, there's kind of the like, I have a certain skill set for just like running a game for a table at a convention, and like I can always fall back on that skill set if the game isn't pushing me out of that comfort zone.
The oaths were very much like, you can't do this because one of the things that when that game was working, and I think this is kind of important for Robin Hood stories in general, but like or Robin Hood stories specifically, but it can apply generally. It's that you don't want the GM concerned with making the story interesting. You want to flip that onto the players and say, like, you're the merry folk. You're not supposed to solve the problem that I'm presenting to you. You're supposed to create the problem for the authority that I'm presenting to you. Like you're supposed to come up with the idea to like stop the rich abbot going through the forest and invite him to dinner and then make him pay for it, right? Like that's on you. I can't write that as an adventure because there's too much agency in that's not the right term, because there's agency in the other style of stories. There's too much of the story that's really dependent on you making the events happen. So I had to like turn back that style of GMing that I'm used to. But I'm getting too deep into what the game is when we're just talking about white whales. We're just talking about white whales.
A question that I have for you So once you have like the, you have the oath, those felt like they were either there or like getting there or part of the package, right? You're like, where do you go next from that? Like, what's your kind of feeling about that? Because I think for me, one temptation I would have is like, all right, what if we just throw out the rest of this stuff and start with oaths?
Right.
The mechanic is you have oaths, and then maybe you bring stuff back in as you find it. But like
this, I think,
is there an element of winnowing down to like, okay, I found this.
I think this is one of the advantages to like setting it on the shelf and coming back a little later, because you come back and I got all my notes and everything, and sometimes I read through my notes and I'm like, Epi, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
But like, before I even get to those notes, I'm like, oh, the oaths. I got to find the oaths. Those are important, right? Like, so like the things that you remember working really well are the first things in your head when you come back to it. And I agree, because I have done like from the ground up, redid it. Each time there's certain things that I hold on to. Like I really, really want the game to use coins instead of dice.
Right, yeah.
There's a couple other things. There's things, and this is another. I don't think white whales are bad things as long as you're healthy with them, right? Like as long as you can set them aside or whatever. There's a bunch of stuff that I developed doing different versions of Lincoln Green that have like found their way into the annual, and obviously in a much different form. It's not a Robin Hood story in any of these.
Yeah, but sometimes there's those like there's pieces that you could develop and are totally hold together as their own little chunk of something, and it's like, oh well, you could use this for a different purpose, and like that's a really productive. That's a way to, I don't know, pick get some of your blubber and oil out of it to sell at the market. Some side benefit.
Yeah, and for me in particular, Lincoln Green has definitely been. There's been a few other games that like I haven't brought to fruition, but like have developed things and then they've just shown up in other things because it's more.
That's just how it works.
More immediate. Yeah, and it's stuff that's like, oh, this will fit here, and I might as well. You don't have to be like, oh no, I should wait till that debuts in. Oh yeah. Like that.
You don't need to hold that kind of stuff. Yeah. I mean, it's not like you're doing like, here's how you use Jenga to play a role playing game.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
I was just thinking that I think my thing that was like that for Imp was the and I've talked about this before too, the thing from Wraith with the shadow where another player plays your Wraith and like is your darker self. So like one thing that has been from the beginning, like this needs to be in this game, is that the players can speak to each other in the voice of the imp. So the editor doesn't do that. The editor can present like, this is how, here's stuff that is going on and that's directed at your deal. But the other players are the ones who have the ability to give each other what are called weirding dice by speaking as the imp and offering them. If you do this, I'll give you this. And then it's up to the player to accept or reject the weirding die, which is always better mechanically for you to have more dice. So it's, so it's, it really ends up being a very thematic interaction where during play it creates the moments that I was looking for where people are facing a choice and either enthusiastically going in, like, oh yeah, I am definitely doing that.
Yeah. Give me that sweet die.
Give me that sweet die, or are making that choice to be like, you know what, I'm going to hold back. Like this time, I don't need it, or like I'm not willing to do that. And that's like a character moment that can lead to. There's some longer term stuff with like if you reject it, it might be better for you like long term experience wise, but in the moment, it's not going to be better for you in that the conflict or whatever you're rolling for. Anyway, that aspect of like you speak in the voice of the imp to other players and you offer them dice to do a thing was something that was like, well, that has to be in this. If that's not in this, it's not working.
That's great. I always love the angel devil on the shoulder.
What have we learned from our experiences with white whales that might be helpful for other people who are on the sea?
Yeah. other sailors lost on this tumultuous ocean. Break it up, like make games about different parts of it that you don't want to like. I haven't done this, and I really should with Lincoln Green. Is I should just make like a bunch of little games that like come from the different parts. That I mean, like I said, a lot of stuff that's come out of the Lincoln Green thing has ended up in other games. So maybe that's fine.
Yeah, that could be really productive to be like, instead of like, here's Lincoln Green, the game, be more like, here's the Lincoln Green collection of little Robin Hood games.
And I think, and I've tried this and it didn't work, but I think that there's definitely something to just saying, all right, I have all this, and now I am not making a Robin Hood game. I'm making a Three Musketeers game. I'm making a, like tricking yourself into like, hey, I know that this is important to you, so let's not say it's the important thing.
Yeah, it's kind of a way of getting a little bit of like, what's an objective view of the actual work I've done?
Right.
Let's step away from like, here's the feeling I'm trying to capture, and be like, let's not worry about that. Let's just look at what you actually have and put it in a different context and be like, maybe you have some, like, taken away a step. You can evaluate it a little more thoroughly and be like, okay, what is actually working here, and what have I, what do I still have to work on?
And I will say, like, this isn't a guarantee, right? Like, but if you write a game that people play to any extent, there is a increasing chance that somebody will try and make a D&D out of it.
Yep.
And it's okay if you're that person just to get the idea out on paper, right? Like that's the thing that I want to like say, or a Star Wars or something, like you're allowed to hack your own unfinished games to do, because that's the thing I have done a few times where I was like, I want this to be a Robin Hood game, or I want this to be a blah, blah, blah game, but I really need to test this out, and like a more swashbuckly dungeon crawl thing is fine. We'll just do that, like, and see how it plays.
Now you're just evaluating like one aspect, like one vector of it, like, oh, is this like a fun activity to do with friends, and not like, and does it also do the thing that I'm yearning for it to do? You can have those be separate.
In particular, like a dungeon crawly game is in my head, like, I'm trying to say this in a way that doesn't come across as snooty, so I'm going to fail. But like, I enjoy dungeon crawly games, and also I don't feel the desire to fill the world with them. So it becomes an easy target for me to not feel invested in.
Yeah, not get it hung up on making it like the perfect thing.
So quite often, like, that ends up being my like go-to for like, I have an idea for a mechanic or something. Let's slam it into that, because that I don't care.
And the rest of the structure there is like, and I can just run this kind of game. Like, I have those skills, and I don't need to have everything be perfect or to be functional even. You can just kind of be like, and I know how to do the rest of this. I don't need to like do a bunch of original creative work to get this part to the table.
And like, whatever shape that takes for you, dear scholar, that's fine. Like, it doesn't have to be dungeon crawly. Like, that's just a thing that I've been trained since the early 80s. So, you might have a different experience, but like, that easy fallback makes it nice to, not only makes it easier for you to handle like the things that you're doing, but also, just, you don't feel the crushing weight of having to do it right.
Right. I would also say that there's like, if you're in this situation and you're getting like frustrated with like, here's this thing and I've been trying to get to it, I'm just not getting to it. We've been saying it's fine to put it on the shelf, work on other stuff. And I think that's all true. But also, if it's the thing that you want to be doing, and it's like, I don't have other things that I want to work on, I really just want to do this. I think there's also something to the idea of like, you can take a couple swings, right? Like, you can either take a slice of it. I think similar to what I basically ended up doing, which was like, take this game that had these different components or these different types of play that I wanted to all have integrated into one thing. And then eventually I was like, it's just not going to work that way. So by breaking that apart, and I still kind of had this idea where it would reverse what it is now, the adventure, monster hunting game is one game, and then this other like epistolary authored game that's more literary and more about making Gothic fiction could be another game in like, it could be, you know, Imp of the Perverse Writer's Room or something like that's a like have a different title, but it's a companion, right? Like they live in the same world kind of thing, and that's just a different game, and I would have to do that as its own project. But I think there's something to being like, of all the things I'm trying to capture here, can I distinguish a couple different goals and be like, okay, I'm going to work on capturing this goal in particular and see where that gets me. And then maybe you end up with a sequence of games, or maybe getting there gets you to where you need to be to expand back out to the whole, you know, the whole enchilada. But I think there's ways to keep, like, you could like take a couple different swings at it and be like, okay, what if I do this as this kind of game? Still wasn't quite right, but like, you have a game, it's done, you do the best you can. Then, all right, what if I do it as this other kind of game? And then maybe there's something just getting reps in on the idea from different angles that I think is also a productive way to keep sailing.
You can go sort of the ash can route. You could just
do the minimum,
put out the thing that you have, and then if you're still interested after that, because sometimes it's just, you just have to get it out.
Sure.
None of these are destined, right? Like, none of these, there's no or maybe this is just me getting into like a personal philosophy here, but I don't like, I'm not like, the world shaped history to make this happen. No, like, that's not the case. So sometimes you're just like, oh, I've got it out. Like, I mean, like, I'll take a very personal example here, like Swords Without Master, throwing that in the Worlds Without Master and just getting it out there was what I needed to do. Yeah, issue 3, yes.
And it kind of, you took a little pressure off yourself by having it be part of a different project. Yeah. And it was a project that I decided to do because I was so obsessed with swords. But it's nonetheless, it was like, it gave me, it wasn't the intent. I did not start Worlds Without Master thinking, oh, I will eventually publish swords in it. I just got to issue 3 and I said, I need a game. What if I just pulled this out of my head and put it somewhere where people could see it? Always with the intent of doing it on its own eventually. Eventually. We'll leave a significant pause there.
Yeah.
Because it can teach you either way. You can be like, okay, I kind of got this thing together and it's out and that's what I needed to do. Or it can be like, I got this thing together and it's out and it's not right. Right. Yeah. And then it's like, that gives you more to go on in terms of the next phase of it, whatever the next phase of it is.
I have this, like, I don't know if this is shared with the larger audience or whatever, but I have an appreciation for just, I mean, we've encountered this with our homework sometimes. I have an appreciation with just getting the ideas out. Like, like, you can impress me with a non-working game real easily. Like, I don't think that's a bad thing at all. Like, I think I could, if you got a game that doesn't do the thing you want it to do, but it's got ideas in it, and you just want that out in the world, and I see it, and I find the arcane gems. I'm happy. Like, I think that's a worthwhile endeavor. I think that was worth doing. In case anyone needs that from Papa Epi or whatever. What you're doing is worthwhile, kid. Keep at it.
I will say that I do want to acknowledge that I think part of what makes a white whale is that it is your personal journey that is that is fraught. It's not about whether other people get it or not. Like, that's a welcome side effect, and obviously you want to do the best you can, and the world of truly true role-playing games, like, they're interactive. You want other people to do the thing that the game wants them to do and have a good time with it, as part of success, for whatever value that is. But yeah, I think there's a lot of like self-reflection involved in the journey that isn't really contingent on like, are other people going to get anything out of this? Even though they will, is what we're saying. Even though they will. I feel like I'm a little bit in white. I'm not there yet, but I feel like there's the potential for this Dark Fantasy Fates game to get into white whale territory for me, because it's not there yet. I need to do, I need to kind of get my next revision of it done. But if it's still not there soon, I think it might start drifting to that territory. So
you might put it on a shelf or
The thing about that one is I'm like, I feel like I'm there with 75% of it, and just playing it a little bit will get me the rest of the way. That's how I feel right now. But we'll see. We'll see.
I will say, okay, I'm going to make a controversial statement here because based on exactly what you just said, like play it a little bit. I want to say, and I may be wrong here, so I'm already drawing back on it. But I want to say that you can't talk yourself out of a white whale. You have to play yourself out of it. I don't think you can sit down with other game designers and say, you can definitely get ideas just talking with other game designers. I highly encourage doing that. But I think like playing what you currently have and doing like a honest assessment of it is the way to do it.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, is that if you never get to play what you have, it always feels out of reach.
Yeah.
I mean, there are games where it's like I can write a game and I'm like, I know how this is going to work. And like, I'm fairly to very confident that like it's going to do the thing that I want it to do because I have this experience with this kind of mechanic and the scope of it is only so much. Like there are games that I'm like, this doesn't need tons of playtesting to be like, yeah, this is playable. This is going to do what I want it to do. Here you go. But the part of what makes the white whale is that it's like, I don't know yet. Like and it's a game you won't know until you play. You can think about it a lot, but you gotta play it. And I think that might be part of it too, where it's like if you're in a situation where you just are never confident enough in what you have to try it at the table, that I think is the situation where it's going to be really hard to catch that whale. Yeah,
definitely. And I guess that's. I thought I was going to add something to that, but I didn't have anything to add. Like I was just thinking about like having the experience of running Lincoln Green for fellow game designers quite a bit. Like as going down to various cons that are. I was going to say polluted with game designers, but I know I meant something else. Littered with game designers.
Filthy with game designers.
It's just
just piles of them.
Yeah. And I play the game with them. They seem to have fun. We do enjoy ourselves. And then afterwards, there's often, like, especially if you're saying this is still a work in progress, there's an after conversation. And while you're having that conversation, like I would say, oh yeah, it's just not quite there yet. And they'll be like, well, like, what's not there? And I'm like, I can't tell you.
If I could tell you, it would be there.
Yeah, exactly. Like I know how to get from A to B if I know where A and B are. Yeah. I don't right now. And I don't know if I can talk out of it, talk my way out of it. I think I have to like keep playing to find out. That was a lengthy discussion about games that go nowhere.
One of the many services we provide here at the Unwritten Earth Symposium. As you may have noticed, we did not do any arcane gems this episode because we took a little, we wanted to cycle back to doing more, writing work because that's what we do for the annual right now. And we also did not give ourselves an assignment because we're going to have a little bit of a gap between this and our next recording. So we're going to find an assignment for homework in that gap, and then we will report back in our next recording about what that was and then what our findings are. Yeah. Just to maintain some flexibility, we didn't really have anything in particular to drop in this right now about what our assignment will be. But if you are interested in giving us one, you can come over to the Discord and give us some suggestions. We always welcome them about how to find the deep cuts and forgotten gems, forgotten lore in our game libraries for our game discovery homework. You can find a link to that Discord over at our website, unwrittenearths.com, along with links to all of our other things, including the brand new shiny link to our itch storefront. Oh, yes. So our website has the links to the Discord, our itch page where you can still get the free download preview one night only adventure scenario from the annual, as well as a couple of our other catalog games that we're starting to add. You can get to the podcast page to subscribe and to the Patreon to support us in our ongoing endeavors. Reminder that all patrons get the Plus Expenses bonus podcast, so you get 4 units of me and Epi talking a month instead of 2 units. That starts at $3 a month. Then you also get the annual if you are a subscriber over there. There's links to send us an email if you have a question or a comment, and also to follow us on Blue Sky. Come talk to us in Discord. I think those are all the things. Are there other things? I think those are all the things.
I think that's all we got. I mean, for now.
For now. As always, the Unwritten Earth Symposium podcast is by us. Go us. Thank you so much for supporting the podcast. We don't do advertising or anything. This is 100% scholar-supported endeavor. So just want to throw that out there every once in a while. No one's beating down at the door to give us money for this stuff. So if you like what we're doing, we appreciate your support, either by buying some of our games or over at Patreon. Our music is by Will Yobst. You can find Will at will.com, braintrust.rocks, and goodluckpress.co. Good Luck Press has a bunch of new cool stuff going on, so you should definitely check that out. And that brings us to our traditional ending question. Epi, are we ever going to catch that white whale of making a game?
There she blows up on the horizon. There she blows.